Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Before I hand over the floor to the prosecution to put the question to the witness, the chamber wishes to ask Ms. Soksuchita, the duty counsel, can you please advise the chamber your identity and your ID number, and where is your practice office? I have an ID 710 with Omran law firm, Street 434 in Tultumpung, 1 Phnom Penh. The President, thank you. Now I hand over the floor to the prosecution to put the question to the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I had, at the break, just read to you some testimony provided by a district secretary in Sector 41 regarding an order to identify and kill the Cham people in that sector. And you had identified, indicated that you knew the sector secretary, Sector 41 Secretary Ta'an. My question is, did Ta'an have a position on the zone committee? Specifically, was he the deputy secretary of the central zone under Kai Pak?
Ta'an is the zone secretary and also a member of the sector, and he was in charge of Sector 41.
The translation I got was a little unclear. Can I ask you to repeat what was his position on the zone committee?
Ta'an was the secretary of Sector 41, and he was the deputy secretary of the zone and also a committee of the zone committee.
So I read to you a statement of a district secretary that Ta'an provided an order to identify and kill all the Cham people in the 5 districts of Sector 41. I want to get your reaction to that testimony, and specifically whether you ever heard of a similar order being given in Sector 42.
No, I have never heard of that.
Mr. Witness, you were in Chamkarlu district from mid-1977 through into 1978. Do you have any other explanation as to what happened to the missing 1,000 Cham families in that district? Other than that, they were identified and killed.
Mr. President.
The President, Mr. Witness, please hold on, and Counsel Coupe, you may proceed.
I object to the way the question is framed. Prosecution presents it as undisputable evidence. It just comes from a WRI from one particular potential witness. So we have no idea what the source of knowledge of this particular witness is. So the question, as it is phrased now, should be phrased differently, and I think the prosecution should go back to identify again the particular source of this evidence.
Let me rephrase the question, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, we talked earlier about how there were 1,000 Cham families in Chamkarlu district who disappeared during the regime. Do you have any explanation as to why those Cham families disappeared other than that they were killed?
The President, Counsel Kung Sumon, you may proceed. Kung Sumon, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to register my objection to this question on two grounds. First, the Deputy International Prosecutor has suggested the witness to explain an event, and in his capacity as a witness, he cannot give an explanation which is rather subjective. And in addition, secondly, this witness has already made it very clear that he did not know the reason for the disappearance of 1,000 Cham, and he did not know whether or not they killed, and I think that these lines of questioning is contradictory to what we have done in this court before.
Mr. President, if the witness doesn't know, he can say he doesn't know in response to my question.
The President, importantly, I think that these questions need to be reframed. Otherwise, we will not allow the witness to respond to these questions, because if you ask the question, ask the witness to explain, the witness has made mention already that he has not been aware of the disappearance of this 1,000 Cham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll ask a different question. Mr. Witness, based on your experience as a sector and district cadre, did sector and zone secretaries have authority to decide that groups of people would be purged and smashed? Or was that a decision that could only be made by the party leaders in Phnom Penh? And I'm not asking you to speculate here. I'm asking for what you know based on your time as a sector and district cadre.
My understanding was that the zone secretary or sector secretary did not have the right or the discretion to decide unless they received the instruction from the upper echelons. And I would like to bring up an example. If the Prime Minister, for example, Samdech Daechu, does not allow the execution, who could carry out the executions? That was it.
want to turn now to some questions about Nuon Chea. Mr. Witness, what do you know about Nuon Chea's role in the regime, and specifically his role with respect to the development of an instruction on party policies?
I only heard from other cadres who had been to study with Mr. Nuon Chea. They said that Nuon Chea actually was very firm and very strict. For example, whenever he convened a meeting, he would require that everyone participated, and they had to work very hard to what they said at the times. He was the one who actually advised the people on the policy.
Who were the cadres who attended these study sessions or meetings with Nuon Chea who told you this?
That was the region cadres, and it was the district committee members also. They went to attend the study sessions with Nuon Chea, and then upon their return, I asked them what they studied in the study session. It was like when I went to study with Son Sen. Generally, with Son Sen, he did not ask us to convene a meeting after returning back from the study sessions, but Nuon Chea would do.
When you refer to region cadres, are you referring to the people who were on the sector committee, the Sector 42 committee, including your in-law Un?
The President, hold on, please. Response. Well, at the region, I refer to the sector level, the secretary, sector secretary, and the district committee members.
I want to read to you an excerpt from your interview E319/28.3.1 at answer number 10. You gave the following testimony. Question: to your knowledge, who gave the order to purge the people in the Central Zone and to kill the Cham? Answer: I do not know exactly about this, but I still remember what I heard from other people who said that under that regime, Pol Pot did not give all of those orders. He was just the person who was in the top position and behind the political scene. They said that the one who issued those orders was Nuon Chea because he was the one who developed and put into practice the policies of the Communist Party of Cambodia. End of quote. Now, I just want to clarify here who it was that told you this about Nuon Chea. Was it the same people that you've just identified, the sector and district committee?
On this issue, it was the plan of the upper echelon. From the senior cadres at the upper level, they told us that Uncle Pol Pot were on the top, and he never came to conduct the training. Only Nuon Chea did it. He instructed people about the workforce and other plans. So that was the responsibility of Nuon Chea at the time.
And my question was, the information you gave in this answer, did that come from the same people you just identified a few minutes ago? That is, the members of the sector and district committee who attended training conducted by Nuon Chea.
On this point, I heard it from Brother Un when I met him. I asked why the purge was carried out, and he said that it was the plan from the upper echelon. They accused them of CIA or KGB, so they put it on a black note that CIA or KGB agents were subject to being smashed.
And did Sector Secretary Un specifically talk to you about the role of Nuon Chea?
Yes, he did.
I'm going to turn now to some questions about the period in 1978 when cadres in the East Zone were purged and you were sent to be the secretary of Kro Khmer district. And first, just to help make clear when it was that you were sent there, can you tell us whether it was before or after the arrests of the local East Zone cadres that you were sent to Kro Khmer district?
President, witness, please hold on, and Counsel Coupe, you may proceed.
I object to the phrasing of this particular question. The prosecution is using the word purge and arrests when it comes to East Zone cadres. Specifically, he refers to Kro Khmer, which is in Sector 21. We all know that there weren't many arrests at that time. When he was going to Kro Khmer, there was a full armed conflict, military battles, etc. So I don't think the words arrests or purge are appropriate in this question.
Counsel is giving testimony here himself. I think his description is wrong. There's a record of the hundreds, many hundreds of East Zone cadres who were arrested and sent to S21 at this time, which I'm happy to reference. Let me try coming at it from a different direction with the witness here. Mr. Witness, were you aware of cadres from the East Zone who were either arrested or who fled to the jungle in 1978? And in terms of the time that you went to Kro Khmer district, was it before that happened or after after the East Zone cadres had either been arrested or had fled into the jungle?
When I got there, Uncle Chia Sim and Hein Simran had fled into the jungle. So when I got there, at that times there were the movement to establish the National Salvation Forces. At that times there were the resisting forces, which was very active then. And at that time, I did not know very much because I was in charge of the fishing lot, and that was the affairs of the upper echelon.
A number of the cadres from the East Zone have given the date of 25 May 1978 as a date on which many high-ranking cadres were arrested and on which others, including the people you've named, fled to the jungle. Do you remember how long it was after the 25th of May 1978 that you were sent to Croque-Chamar district?
Mr. President, I have an objection on the detail of the question. I don't think the word jungle is appropriate. They fled to Vietnam, so I think that should be incorporated into the question, not jungle, Vietnam.
They went to the jungle first, but I'm happy to incorporate into that question. They went to the jungle, and some of them then went to Vietnam. When was it that you were sent to Croque-Chamar district in relation to this date, the 25th of May, 1978? Do you remember?
I do not recall the date. I only knew that Uncle Chia Sim and Hay Simran defected and they fled to Vietnam. And then people talk about the Eastern cadres betray Angka, and they were the agent of KGB.
I'll ask you a little bit about that later. During the time you served as Croque-Chamar district secretary, who was the sector secretary to whom you reported, and who was the zone secretary?
Sector secretary was Rin. He was a military man, and he was the sector secretary. And Son Sen was the commander-in-chief, and he was in charge of this zone. He was the zone secretary.
Let me first ask you about Rin. Where was Rin from?
Rin was originally from the southwest zone.
Did you know whether Rin was a relative of Tamok?
Yes, you are right. Those from the southwest zone were connected to Tamok.
Now you've identified Son Sen as the zone secretary. A number of other witnesses have testified that it was Noon Chea who was named East Zone secretary after Sao Pim's death. Specifically, Tabang Kamum District Committee member Matt Lee. This is interview E3 390, English 00436 853, Khmer 00. The document number again, E3/390. Khmer ERN 00392 076. English 00436 853. 943, French 00479 788. Matt Lee made the following statement in this interview, quote, "I saw that when they announced that Sao Pim was gone, the zone chairman Noon Chea and the deputy was Tan Sang Hong, but in fact it seemed Noon Chea's face was never seen and Sang Hong was not seen," end of quote. And also in document E3/455, E3/455, English 00149-917, Khmer 00146-678, French 00149-943. This was an interview of S21 Chairman Deutsch, who stated, quote, "The East Zone forces belonging to Sao Pim were completely smashed and forces belonging to Tamak put in their place, but Noon Chea was made Secretary of the East," end of quote. So my question for you is, how is it that you knew that Son Sen was the zone secretary? And do you have any reaction to the testimony of these witnesses that it was Noon Chea who had been named as zone secretary?
I went to attend the zone study session, and Sun Sen was the one who trained all of us, and Rin was there as well. At that time, there was no office. We were on mobile, and the Vietnamese forces were advancing, so we did not see Nuon Chea at that time. Sun Sen conducted the training. I was at the district level at that time, and I was called to attend the training with him then.
I'll ask you a little bit about that training later. Did Son Sen say at this meeting that he was the new secretary of the East Zone?
Yes, at that time, that's what he said. He was the zone secretary, and Hong was his deputy, and he was in charge of 2 sectors.
Thank you. During the time that you were Kroch Tamar District Secretary, where was your office located?
There was no office because of the chaotic situation. A permanent office was not established, and we were constantly on mobile.
In your OCIJ statement, you describe conducting district meetings. Where were those meetings held?
Sometimes meetings were held in the pagoda, or sometimes they were held at Krochma. As I said, there was no fixed office location. And I was in that position not for long. Then there was the resistance and the attack from the opponents.
Okay, you identified 2 locations. I just want to get some more specifics. You said that meetings were sometimes held in the pagoda. What pagoda were you talking about? What village or commune was this pagoda in?
Witness, please wait for the microphone to be operational. Witness, I do not know that the pagoda.
And you said that sometimes the meetings were held in Krochmar. Where in the district is my question? What part of the district were you referring to where these meetings were held? Can you give us any indication of that?
It was at the district's commerce office. That is a former commerce office.
And this former commerce office, was it used at some point to detain people who had been arrested?
No, it was not.
Let me read to you something you said in one of your OCIJ interviews, E3 375, E3/375, Khmer ERN 0034882 through 803, English 00360-762, French 00369-924. This is what you stated in that interview, Mr. Witness. Quote, "One place in the Commerce Office in Krochmar Chief Town was used for detaining people before taking to smash." End of quote. Where the office that you described in this interview, Mr. Witness, where people were taken to be detained before being smashed, where was this office located?
I cannot recall it.
Let me get your reaction to some information that's been provided by another witness, for the record 2 TCW 904. This is in OCIJ interview E39324, E3/9324, Khmer 0020457, English 00242-064, French 00485-139. This is a statement from a witness from Tria Village, Tria 2 Village, who worked as a sub-district clerk during the regime. I quote, "Today, I pointed out to the investigator of the Khmer Rouge Tribunal the 1975 site of the Khmer Rouge Commune Office at Tria 2 Village. In May 1978, they took that site for use as their district office instead. After that, they also took the 2 adjacent houses for the use of the district office. They designated the areas north and south of that office as the district security site. All the houses surrounding the district office were used to detain prisoners." End of quote. Is it correct, as testified by this witness, that the office you've been describing that was converted into a district office was in Tria Village?
fact, as I stated, there was no fixed office and there was no detention office as well, since there was no security force.
You just told us a few minutes ago that a commerce office was used as the district office. Was this commerce office located in Tria village?
Commerce office was located in Krochma, where actually boats docked.
And the place where the ferries docked, wasn't the name of that location Tria village and Tria commune? Do you remember that, Mr. Witness?
Actually, the area was called Krochma, and there was a bridge leading to a dock. It was in Krochma, not in Trier.
Let me turn to another subject, which is aliases that you used during the Democratic Kampuchea period. You've identified two names that you used in your interviews. One, Hang Pos, and also another alias, Hang Sun Ho. Which of those aliases did you normally use during the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
My native birth name is Hang Sun Ho. However, when I joined the revolution, I used Hang Po as my alias, and I'm still known as Po. And on my national identification card, I use the name Ban Siet.
Do you remember, Mr. Witness, whether during the time you were in Krochmar district, you used the name Ho?
No, I did not.
And I would like to ask you about some testimony that has been given by former cadres who identify you by the name, former cadres from Krochmar who identified you and apparently knew you by the name Ho. First, OCIJ statement E3/5253 at Khmer 00235-002, English 00235-483, French 00250-059. Again, this is E3/5253. Mr. Witness, this is the testimony of a local woman who worked as a cook at the Krochmar Commerce Office, and she testified as follows. Question: do you remember Comrade Ho, the district secretary who went to visit that office? Answer: yes. I used to see him coming to the Commerce Office because that office then was the residence of senior cadres. End of quote. And another person, a cadre from the same area in Krochmar, TCW 904. This is the person who worked as a clerk at the TRIA Subdistrict Office. In interview E3/5288, E3/5288 at Khmer 00326 653 through 54, English 00336 290 through 91, French 00411 588 through 89. And I'd like to read to you what this witness had to say. Quote, Cochamar District Committee was Ho. In 1978, Ho came to work as the district committee and appointed Meng as TRIA Commune Committee. Ho used to go to visit my place occasionally. Continuing later. Question, when did you first meet Ho? Answer, approximately in June or July 1978. At that time, I saw him walking back and forth in the road. I used to join the meeting with him once at the kitchen in TRIA Commune Office. Question, in what year was that meeting held? Answer, approximately September 1978. Question, why did you know his name was Ho? Answer, I knew his name was Ho because the Commune Committee called him Ho. And then a few questions later, question, did you know what sector he came from before he worked as district committee? Answer, he used to work as a sector fisherman in Stung Tron. End of quote. Mr. Witness, it seems that there are people who remember you, specifically identify you as a former sector fisherman, but who knew you by the name Ho. Is it possible that you have forgotten and that in fact during the short period you were Cochamar District Chief, you used the name Ho instead of the name Pos?
I did not use the name Ho in Krochma. Only when I was at the fishing lodge, I used the word Ho. And when I was moved to Sector 42, I no longer use that word.
Turn to another subject. During the time period that you were Cochamar District Secretary, did you have authority yourself to make decisions on people to be executed? And if not, who had the authority to make such decisions?
I did not have any authority to make such a decision, and as I said from the outset, authorities and orders came from the upper echelon to smash the so-called KGB or CIA agents.
I want to now ask you a few questions about an incident that's described fairly extensively in your OCIJ interviews. About 1 or 2 weeks after you arrived in Cochamar District, was there an incident in which a number of people in one commune tried to rebel or resist or fight against the party? And if so, can you describe for the court what those people did and what happened to them?
At that time, it was not the people, it was those in the mobile unit. That's what I was told. They were pretty young, they were about 18 to 20 years old.
And what is it that these young people in this mobile unit had done?
I learned it from my brother that they were separated from those in the jungle, and then they gathered and engaged in the rebellion. Of course, under the regime, anyone who opposed the regime, even if your own relative, would not be spared. And that's what happened.
So can you tell us what was done with these young people from the mobile unit who had rebelled and on whose orders?
Those people were taken to one location and they all were purged.
By purge, do you mean that they were killed?
Yes, that is correct.
And who was it that decided that those people were to be killed? And how were those orders conveyed to you?
The order came from the zone, and of course the zone might receive it from the further upper level, and then the order came down through the chain of commands to the district and then to the soldiers.
In your OCIJ interviews, you describe a written instruction that was in red ink. Do you remember this written order? And do you remember who it was signed or issued by?
The order came from the zone, then through the sector secretary.
Where were these people detained and killed? And did you yourself visit the location where those people were detained?
Yes, I went to the site, and they were killed in a place that was similar to a school, and after I made a quick visit, then I returned.
You indicate in your interview that this place was on an island, but that you don't remember the name of the island. And what I would like to know, though, is the island that you traveled to where these people were detained. Was it an island on the river on the west side of Cochamar district? Or was it an island that was on the north side of the district? Do you remember?
No, I cannot recall that because I myself was not that familiar with the geography of Cochamar district.
Do you know how these people were executed and who conducted the executions?
The letter was delivered through the soldiers, and the soldiers there was a mixture of those from the center and from the Krochma district, and they took part in the execution there.
And when you refer to soldiers from the center, who are you referring to? Whose soldiers were these, and under whose command were these soldiers from the center?
Those soldiers were under the command of Son Sen. They were, and the special force soldiers were under the command of Ron.
Who was Ron?
President, witness, please observe the microphone. Witness. Ron was also known as Kung. He was in charge of the special unit force that belongs to the center and belong to they're under the command of Q. And they were in charge of the national security, and they did not engage in any fight along the border.
And just so we're clear, Mr. Witness, when you refer to Q, who are you referring to?
When I refer to Q, I refer to Son Sen.
You mentioned earlier a meeting that you attended that was led by Son Sen. Can you tell us where that meeting was held, who attended, and what Son Sen talked about at the meeting?
The meeting was held at the zone level. However, it was on a mobile, it was not at a fixed office, and it was held in a rubber plantation. So the district chief also attended such a meeting, and then they set a work plan to gather people for the work site and to draft people to go to the front battlefield.
You indicated in your OCIJ interview that this meeting was held at Sung. Was that where this rubber plantation was? Or can you tell us the rubber plantation where this meeting was held? What district and what commune was, or what village was this place in?
It was in the area called Tabong Kpuh, in Tabong Khmum, and that rubber plantation is known as Chup rubber plantation.
Did at this meeting, Mr. Witness, did Son Sen talk about purges of enemies, and if so, what did he say?
He talked about the infiltrated enemies, which means the KGB and the CIA agents. So to recruit soldiers, we had to be very careful in order to not select those agents. However, the situation was in a dire circumstance and nothing could help it.
I want to ask you about something you said in your interview describing this meeting. This is at E3/375, Khmer ERN 00348-796 through 97, English 00360-756, French 00369-919. You start by describing, as you've just told us, a meeting held by Uncle Koo about the purges, and then you make the following statement. Question. What kind of people were considered as bad elements? Answer. The new people were considered as bad elements. Most of people who worked at working sites used to be warned by me not to talk too much. Activity line is what we do. If we do something out of the party's line, we are enemy. End of quote. What I wanted to clarify, Mr. Witness, was it Son Sen who talked about new people being viewed as bad elements? And did he explain why the new people were considered bad elements?
During the meeting, they did not refer to new people, but they refer to the infiltrated elements, namely the KGB and the CIA agents. And in the East zone, they refer to the KGB.
Ask you a few general questions about the Cham people in Cochamar district. During the time you were there, were there many Cham people in Cochamar district? And did you know what villages or what parts of the district the Cham people were located in?
No, I cannot recall that well. Cham people were also at the work sites, so it is very difficult to say for which village they came from.
When you were assigned to be the secretary of Cochamar district, were you told about the Cham people in that district? And specifically, were you told about two rebellions of the Cham people that had taken place back in 1975?
The upper echelon did not mention anything about the Khmer Cham at that time. At that time, the situation was hot, and then we needed to reunite our forces. We knew that Chia Sim and Hein Samrin had defected, so we had to unite ourselves at that time.
Mr. Witness, when you were first interviewed by the Office of Co-Investigating Judges, your very first interview back in February 2009, and this is document E3/5275, E3/5275, Khmer ERN 00282 921, English 00284-493, French 00339-918. In that first interview, you were asked whether you had ever been the secretary of Krochmar district, and this is how you responded at that time, quote, "I never worked in Krochmar district. I never had the job of secretary of any district, and I never visited any security offices. I never had any contact with Cham Muslims then. I never had a conflict with anybody. I never heard about the purging of Cham Muslims. I never saw them arrest people to take them away to be killed." End of quote. And in the interest of fairness, Mr. Witness, in your subsequent interviews, you acknowledged your position in Krochmar district and have talked about some of the things that took place there. But I'd like to give you an opportunity to explain to the court why you did not tell the truth about your position in Krochmar district in your very first interview.
But
At the time, I was of the view that I worked at Krochmar district for a short period of time, so I did not need to answer that question. At that time, I have my personal matters, and I also had some collective matters with my family.
Mr. Witness, is one of the reasons that in your very first interview you denied being in Krochmar that there were things that had happened in that district that you didn't really want to talk about, bad things that are not pleasant for anyone to have to revisit and talk about. Is that fair to say?
but
For now, of course, it is not correct, but at that time, I worked there. I worked in this position for a short period of time, and there was a purge. And at that time, my former colleagues told me that I did not have to disclose so much, otherwise I would bring trouble to myself. So I decided not to tell everything, every detail of that.
I want to turn now to a few questions about some of those events in Tria Village. Mr. President, I can continue. I'm about to start a new subject if this is an appropriate breaking time. Otherwise, I can continue.
The President, thank you. The time is now appropriate for recess. Now the chamber adjourns and resume at 15 to 3. Court officer, please assist the witness during the recess, and please have the witness and his duty counsel to come here at 5 to 3 rather.